Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Leader of Opposition, Honourable Cabinet colleagues, Honourable Members of Parliament, and to the thousands of Fijians watching this on the Fijian Government Facebook Live and other social media sources. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support the 2020-2021 Fijian National Budget. The Attorney General and the Minister for Economy and his team are commended for the level of innovation shown when drafting the national budget. The budget announcement brought back calmness and hope to our people, removing the fear created by some. Mr. Speaker, said the 2020 and 2021 National Fijian Budget, we can now safely say, looks after the needs and welfare of every single Fijian. Whether you are in a city or town or in a rural or maritime area, the budget ensures that you are able to sustain your livelihood, have access to basic amenities like water, electricity, and of course education for your children. Whether you are a company or business, the tax and other incentives enable you to stay afloat, and many Fijian companies will weather the COVID-19 storm because of this. Mr. Speaker, say whether you are a civil servant who has worried about a pay cut, but now can breathe a sigh of relief because your government has found innovative ways to avoid this, while many others around the world are being hit with pay cuts and redundancy. Mr. Speaker, say whether you are a young Fijian who has always dreamed about starting your own business, now can easily do so with a few clicks online. The national budget caters for everyone. Mr. Speaker, said the list continues. Mr. Speaker, said the reason the national budget addressed so many areas and shocked so many critics is because a simple strategy was followed. The Fiji First government held nationwide consultations. Whether on the ground with the Minister of Economy or the thousands who got involved in the online consultations on the Fijian government Facebook pages, the Fiji First government once again has proven to be the government that listens, the government that visits, the government that hears, and the government that talks to its people. Mr. Speaker, sir, the reason we held nationwide consultations was that we wanted to put in place strategies that work, and what better way than to hear from the people themselves. Mr. Speaker, sir, time and again it's been said, we are living through difficult and uncertain times. The world is facing an unprecedented global crisis, and everyone is trying their best to adapt to the new normal. Like countless people around the world, Fijians are also feeling the economic threats and effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Seeing the need to empower and uplift our people during this critical time, the Fiji First government has put out a bold, innovative and forward-looking Fijian national budget. Mr. Speaker, says businesses around the world are shutting down. It is critical for us to protect Fijian businesses for the sake of our economy, for the sake of job security. The budget has been received very well by most and has a lot of incentives for businesses. The Fijian government introduced bold taxation and custom tariff reductions to rebuild competitiveness of the tourism industry and support economic recovery. Mr. Speaker, say we want to provide businesses tax relief. We want to provide businesses flexible payment arrangements and targeted tax incentives to assist business cash flows to soften the impact of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, said these measures, among many others, are designed to ease the financial burdens being faced by businesses in Fiji. As I mentioned earlier on, Mr. Speaker, say these decisions were not made solely in government offices. We went out, we heard the concerns of the Fijians, and then put in place this budget. For the first time, the Fijian government is ending Fiji's business license policy. From August 1st, 2020, all that a fresh Fijian entrepreneur seeking to start their business will need to do is going to be completely an easy task: an online business incorporation, and tax registration. By ensuring businesses have what they need to flourish, we are also ensuring that Fijian jobs are sustained. Not only that, more jobs will also be created and overall Fijian livelihoods will be preserved. Yes, preservation of Fijian livelihoods is our focus. Mr. Speaker, say with 70% of our population under the age of 40, we have an opportunity to encourage young Fijians to become employers and job creators. Many I know have already been encouraged to plan and are already starting. Mr. Speaker, so let us not forget that the Fijian government already has programs like the YES scheme, which assists budding new Fijian businesses and women. Mr. Speaker, say the Fijian government announced a $2 billion government stimulus package, a bold move to keep people spending and assist us in our economic recovery. This will provide direct relief to Fijians all over the country, as well as much needed protection from the economic fallout of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, said the 2020-2021 budget also introduced bold taxations and custom tariff reductions to rebuild competitiveness of the tourism industry and support economic recovery. Custom duties on over 1,600 items have been cut, Mr. Speaker said. Duties on over 1,000 items have been reduced to 5% or 0%, and duties on more than 500 items have been reduced from 32% to 15%. What this means, Mr. Speaker said, that Fijians will now spend less on 1,600 items, directly reducing the burden on them. Mr. Speaker said COVID-19 has completely changed the way we look at our world now. Every Fijian on the ground is concerned about the health, about the economy, about job security and education of our children. Mr. Speaker said in 2014, the Fiji First government democratically won the national elections, and one of our promises was and still is to give priority to the education of our Fijian children. Since then, Mr. Speaker said, we have never wavered from this promise. Mr. Speaker said, the Leader of Opposition, Honourable Rambuka, in his statement earlier this morning, equated a reduction in the budget for Minister of Education to the reduction in the importance of education. Nothing can be further from the truth. Mr. Speaker said, these will still continue. Free tuition for our children, free textbooks, bus fare subsidies will continue. There has been no reduction in teacher salaries, like many of those from the other side have asked for. Let me remind the Honourable Opposition Leader, Mr. Speaker, said that the Fiji First government has educated more children than his government or any other government has ever done. And we will continue to put in place policies that we will continue these incentives to our children. This has not changed and will not change. Mr. Speaker said we will ensure prudent financial management by finding ways to effectively utilize the budget we've been given, and of course to manage our budget while ensuring that every child in Fiji gets education. Mr. Speaker said, Mr. Speaker said we can say that we can only do this through hard work, unity, working together, thinking smart, and believing in a better future for all Fijians, and of course building confidence in our people. Just like tropical cyclone Winston, we will definitely see another remarkable recovery for our beloved nation. Mr. Speaker said the Minister of Education, Heritage and Arts has been allocated $450.6 million, while higher education institutes have been allocated $81.4 million in the 2020-21 Fijian national budget, with a further $161.1 million for the TELS and the National Topper Scheme. This, Mr. Speaker said, will allow us to ensure that our children continue to be educated. Mr. Speaker said, despite the fact that COVID-19 has had such a severe impact on all economies around the world, the Fijian government is still able to ensure that every child in Fiji gets an education for free. This is not only a testament to our smart policies, but a testament to our dedication to all Fijian children. We are dedicated to safeguarding the welfare of our children, our grandchildren, and their grandchildren by planning long-term. Fijian children will continue to have their tuition fees paid. Fijian children will continue to be provided with textbooks. Fijian children will continue to be subsidized for bus fares so they can reach our schools. Mr. Speaker said, however, parental responsibilities in ensuring that the children reach school will still remain with parents. Our social media, many rumors quickly started flying that we would cut on free education. Mr. Speaker said nothing like that is going to happen. Mr. Speaker says, you can see, despite the reduction in the budget allocation due to COVID-19, no child will be paying for any education within our school system. Our children come first. Mr. Speaker said, the National Toppers scheme and the Tertiary Education Loan Scheme program will continue. To date, we have 2,525 active students on our National Toppers scheme, with further 600 scholarships available in the next financial year. This, Mr. Speaker said, currently 2,525 students, it is costing government $35.5 million. And with a further addition of 600 scholarships next year, we will be spending $7.9 million to add that 600 to the existing 2,525 students. TELS, we have 16,611 active students, and of course this initiative will continue in the next financial year as we've been given a budget of $161.1 million. Mr. Speaker said, like I said, our children come first. In order to qualify for TELS loan scheme now, however, students will need to score 250 marks plus. This is a strategic change, and it has been done to encourage students to work harder and to further increase the quality of our graduates who enter our workforce. The National Topper Scheme has always addressed areas of need for Fiji, and of course this will continue. Mr. Speaker said these will of course be subjected to revision depending on COVID-19 situation and how it develops both globally and locally. Mr. Speaker said, as leaders, we must give priority to our future generations. And you can see that the Fiji First government is more than committed to every single Fijian child and student. If we do not educate them now, Mr. Speaker said, then they will not be able to deal with something like COVID or other disasters that may strike our country in the future. By fostering our future generations, we are being responsible and ensuring that a better future is in store for our future generations of Fijian. Mr. Speaker said, this is why free education will continue and must continue. Mr. Speaker said, even before the budget, while our Honourable Prime Minister was ensuring that we are safe from the impacts of COVID-19 and TC Herald, the Minister of Education was taking proactive measures to protect the welfare of the children. As soon as Fiji recorded its first case, we closed down our schools. We did not want to expose our young ones to any potential outbreaks. Fortunately, our government has invested heavily in technology, and we were able to leverage this during the lockdown. First and foremost, we realized that information is the key to defending yourself against disasters such as COVID-19. We realized that as a Minister of Education and as the Fijian government, we needed to build our information dissemination assets, ensuring that we are able to disseminate information directly from the source, which is us. And this has never been more important if we are to keep up with the rest of the world as a government and as a country. Mr. Speaker said, the Fijian government Facebook page, for example, was the flagship of information dissemination during COVID-19, ensuring that the messages from the Honourable Prime Minister and the health professionals reach majority of our people. The ministry page, like ours, also played a key role ensuring that hundreds of thousands of Fijian children and families got important information relating to our ministries. We provided supplementary lessons for our children who wanted to continue learning on both social media and other platforms. Mr. Speaker said, the Fijian government, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, has educated many Fijian children in rural and maritime areas than any before us. This is due to our policy of not leaving any child behind. We plan to continue this streak and develop education facilities in rural and maritime areas. In doing so, we hope to empower children living in these areas as well. Mr. Speaker said, as mentioned earlier, COVID-19 has taught us the importance of remaining technologically up to date with the rest of the world. Tertiary institutions in Fiji are having online classes to help students finish their courses. Many of the world-leading educational institutions have done the same. Harvard University, for example, has announced that all course instruction undergraduate and graduates for the 2020-21 academic year will be delivered online. The world is already adapting to the new normal, and we as a government and as a ministry are doing the same. Mr. Speaker said, we can say that because we are responsible for the education of young Fijians, we must always be at the cutting edge of technology. During COVID-19 lockdowns, we were able to provide our people with the same access to learning online like many other big nations. And this was not by sheer luck. This was through smart planning that we did years and years ago. The Fiji First government saw where the world was headed, and we planned accordingly. We did not want any Fijian to be left behind, and thus we see the high internet penetration rates and infrastructure that has enabled so many Fijians to go online and continue working, continue schooling, and of course continue to entertain themselves during this period of time. Mr. Speaker, I highlight this because the budget is a forward-thinking budget, just like all our past and current policies. We have spent strategically during a time when many are having cuts across the board. Part of the strategy, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that our children continue to get educated. Mr. Speaker said, it's not only the children, but also the welfare of our teachers and all our civil servants that we are thinking about. Before the 2020-2021 Fijian national budget, many oppositions and many political parties openly called for a cut in our civil servant salaries. Every civil servant, including teachers, breathed a sigh of relief after the announcement and was grateful that our Minister for Economy had not announced that. The Fiji First government understands that civil servants need security, as well as during these challenging times, a pay cut was not the answer. Like I said, Mr. Speaker, we put our people first. Teachers are the custodians of knowledge and play an important role in the upbringing of the children. The Fijian government knows we must treat them and any other civil servant and empower them so that they can empower our children. We also urge teachers not to take this responsibility lightly, because you are responsible for nurturing the future leaders of Fiji. Mr. Speaker, I also encourage the teachers to continue learning and upgrading their qualifications. Mr. Speaker, we will continue. We will continue to do our part in providing the best environment and opportunities for the Fijian people. But I'd like to remind everyone that you have a part to play here too. No longer can we afford to sit down and complain about things on social media. We must stand up and take responsibility for ourselves and our loved ones. We must be united, for a divided house will no doubt fall. We must not lock our fellow citizens outside the gates and instead be decent human beings who bring each other up. Parents must take responsibility for the children and teach them the importance of hard work and being decent human beings. Mr. Speaker, with COVID-19 already causing so much damage, we cannot let it do further damage by tearing apart the Bula spirit that we Fijians are well known for. At an online conference, I lamented it on how it took a global pandemic to make us realize how insignificant our differences are. Education, Mr. Speaker, is so important, not just for academics and just for getting a good job, but also for the basic tenets of being a good person. As leaders of today, we have the unparalleled power to make a change by teaching against intolerance, corruption, and other behavior that damages our society as a whole. Mr. Speaker, we can stop this. We can stop this, and we should stop this by cutting out the roots of this evil values and beliefs and behavior by teaching our children the right thing. We are compassionate people, Mr. Speaker, and we must be prepared to help others when they are in need. And there never has been a better time to do so. The spirit of compassion equally applies to every single Fijian that we encounter, including this side and the other side as well. With that, Mr. Speaker, I once again give my full support to the 2020-2021 Fijian National Budget. Thank you.